One moment, the road was empty beneath the bright afternoon sky, and the next, a small figure was running through a violent hailstorm that had suddenly swept across the countryside. Ice pellets pounded the pavement like thousands of tiny stones. Cars slowed. Drivers swerved. Visibility disappeared behind sheets of rain and flying hail, and then she fell. The black SUV screeched to a stop just a few feet away. If the driver had reacted 1 second later, the child would have been dead. Before we begin this emotional story, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Lifeline Corner if you believe kindness can change lives and that everyone deserves a second chance. Your support helps bring more inspiring stories to people around the world. The man who jumped out of the SUV was named Corbin Hale, a 40-year-old CEO whose success was known across the state. He had built one of the fastest-growing technology companies in the country from nothing. Newspapers praised him. Business magazines celebrated him. Investors admired him, but none of those achievements mattered to him anymore. 3 years earlier, his wife had passed away after a sudden illness, leaving him alone to raise their young son. Since then, every day felt like a battle between responsibility and grief. He worked endlessly during the day and spent his nights staring at old photographs, wondering how life could continue after losing the person who had made it meaningful. The hailstorm slammed against his jacket as he rushed toward the child lying on the road. She couldn't have been older than 6. Her clothes were soaked. Her small hands were scraped from the fall. Her curly dark hair clung to her face as she struggled to sit up. Corbin knelt beside her. The little girl looked into his eyes, and then she said something that made his heart stop. "My mom used to tell me about you." For several seconds, Corbin couldn't speak. The words felt impossible. The child looked frightened but strangely relieved, as though she had finally found someone she had been searching for. Corbin carefully carried her into his vehicle and wrapped her in a blanket from the back seat. The heater blasted warm air while the storm continued raging outside. As he drove toward the nearest town, questions filled his mind. Who was this girl? Who was her mother? And why would her mother know him? The little girl introduced herself as Aurora Vance. Her voice trembled from the cold, but she remained remarkably calm. She explained that she and her mother had been living in a small farmhouse several miles away. Earlier that morning, her mother had collapsed unexpectedly. Neighbors had called an ambulance, and Aurora had been left alone while adults rushed around trying to help. Afraid and confused, she had run away during the chaos. Then she had remembered something her mother often told her. If anything ever happened, find Corbin Hale. The name hit him like a thunderbolt, because he knew exactly who her mother was. 20 years earlier, before he became wealthy, before he built his company, before the world knew his name, Corbin had been a struggling college student. Back then there had been a girl named Celine Vance. She was brilliant, kind, and endlessly optimistic. While everyone else saw Corbin as another broke dreamer with impossible ambitions, Celine believed in him completely. When he couldn't afford textbooks, she shared hers. When he wanted to quit, she encouraged him. When he doubted himself, she reminded him who he could become. For 2 beautiful years, they had been inseparable. Then life intervened. Celine's family moved away. Unexpectedly, communication faded. Time passed, their paths separated. Corbin eventually married someone else and built a different future, yet he never completely forgot the girl who had once believed in him before anyone else did. Now, somehow, her daughter sat beside him. As soon as they reached the hospital, Corbin carried Aurora inside. Doctors confirmed that Celine had suffered a severe medical emergency but was alive. She had arrived just in time for treatment. Relief flooded through Aurora's face. For the first time since the storm, she smiled. Over the next several days, Corbin found himself returning to the hospital repeatedly. At first he told himself it was simply because there was no one else to help, but deep down, he knew the truth. Seeing Aurora awakened something inside him that had been buried beneath years of grief. Her laughter reminded him of brighter days, her courage inspired him, her innocence softened the walls he had built around his heart. When Celine finally regained consciousness, their reunion was emotional beyond words. Time had changed both of them. The years were visible in their faces, life had left scars on each of them, yet the moment their eyes met, memories rushed back. Celine smiled weakly. She admitted she had often spoken about Corbin to her daughter, not because she still lived in the past, but because she wanted Aurora to understand that truly good people existed. Whenever Aurora doubted kindness, Celine would tell stories about a young man who never stopped fighting for his dreams despite having nothing. Corbin listened silently. For years, he had viewed himself as a businessman, a CEO, a provider, a survivor, but hearing those stories reminded him of who he had once been, and who he still could be. As weeks passed, Corbin became increasingly involved in their lives. He helped repair Celine's aging farmhouse. He arranged better medical care. He ensured Aurora had everything she needed for school. The little girl quickly developed a friendship with Corbin's son, Jasper. Both children had experienced loneliness, both understood loss in their own way. Together, they brought energy and laughter back into homes that had grown far too quiet, yet challenges remained. Celine's recovery was slow, medical bills mounted, the farmhouse required expensive repairs. After years of neglect, pride prevented her from accepting too much help. She wanted to stand on her own. Corbin respected that. Instead of solving every problem with money, he offered partnership. He listened, he supported, he showed up. Sometimes the greatest act of kindness isn't rescuing someone, it's refusing to leave afterward. Months passed, the seasons changed, the hailstorm became a distant memory, yet its impact remained. One afternoon, Corbin stood outside watching Aurora and Jasper play beneath a clear blue sky. The children chased butterflies across a field glowing with sunlight, their laughter drifted through the warm air. For the first time in years, peace settled over his heart. His late wife would always remain part of him, nothing could replace her, nothing should, but grief no longer controlled every corner of his life. Instead of focusing on what he had lost, he began appreciating what remained: friendship, family, purpose, hope. Celine eventually recovered enough to return to work part-time. The farmhouse transformed into a warm and welcoming home once again. Life wasn't perfect, it never is, but it was moving forward. Then came the day Aurora surprised everyone. Her elementary school hosted a community appreciation event where children were invited to speak about someone who had changed their lives. Parents, teachers, and local residents filled the auditorium. Aurora stepped onto the stage. She looked tiny beneath the bright lights, yet her voice carried clearly through the room. She spoke about storms, not only the kind that fall from the sky, but the ones that happen inside people's hearts. She talked about fear, loneliness, loss. Then she spoke about a man who stopped his car during a hailstorm to help a frightened little girl. A man who didn't know her. A man who expected nothing in return. A man who stayed. By the time she finished speaking, tears filled countless eyes throughout the audience. Corbin sat frozen in his seat. He had spent years believing success came from business deals and company growth, yet nothing he had ever accomplished felt as meaningful as hearing those words. If this story is touching your heart so far, please like, share, and leave a comment. Stories like these remind us that small acts of kindness can create life-changing miracles. Years later, people in town still talked about the hailstorm. Most remembered it as a sudden weather event, but for 4 lives, it became something far greater. It became the day destiny quietly intervened, the day a grieving father rediscovered hope, the day a struggling mother found support, the day 2 lonely children found family, and the day a little girl proved that one sentence can change everything. Before the story ends, special request: comment below with the words, "Kindness still matters," if you believe one act of compassion can transform a person's life forever. As the sun set over the countryside one evening, Corbin stood beside Aurora, Jasper, and Celine on the farmhouse porch. Golden light painted the fields. The wind moved gently through the trees. No one spoke, they simply watched the horizon together. Sometimes happiness doesn't arrive as a grand victory. Sometimes it arrives disguised as a storm, sometimes it comes in the form of a frightened little girl running through falling hail, and sometimes, when we choose to stop and help someone in need, we discover that the person we rescue ends up rescuing us too. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Lifeline Corner. May it remind all of us that kindness never disappears, hope can return when we least expect it, and even the darkest storms can lead us toward the people we were always meant to find.